Hello students, and welcome to week 2 of FSN 319. Today we're going to talk about artificial sweeteners and sugar alcohols. The objectives for today are to describe the benefits of artificial sweeteners and sugar substitutes, to discuss the regulatory aspect of artificial sweeteners, to define the characteristics of artificial sweeteners, to define the characteristics of sugar alcohols, to explain the labeling for sugar alcohols, and to discuss novel sweeteners like stevia. So what's the benefit of using artificial sweeteners? So they are very important for people that have some medical conditions like diabetes, because these conditions need to limit sugar, and the use of artificial sweeteners can help this population eat foods that are sweet. So these sweeteners are used to sweeten foods or drinks. Another benefit is that it can help with weight control. So typically many artificial sweeteners have 0 or very low calories, which compared to the typical for a calorie per gram of sugar is a reduction of calories. And also another benefit will be that many of the market trends or consumer demands are to have products with less sugar-free. So using this type of artificial sweeteners can help a company label their product as sugar-free. And also, for example, consumers eat a lot of chewing gum or mints, and having or using other types of sweeteners can help with cavity prevention. So these artificial sweeteners sometimes are called non-nutritive sweeteners also, because of the fact that they have 0 calories. So if we think about the question, are artificial sweeteners regulated? The answer is yes, and the agency responsible for regulating them is FDA. FDA has to approve them before marketing. And some examples of the artificial sweeteners that are approved are aspartame, saccharin, acesulfame, potassium, and sucralose. So the issue with saccharin we're going to see in the following slides, but it's a matter of as you may know, FDA has to approve these sweeteners, and the approval process is very intensive. So FDA is constantly looking for evidence and studies with animals, humans, and if they find something that doesn't make sense or that may cause a risk for the consumers, then they will ban the use of these type of sweeteners. So that's the case of saccharin, but we'll discuss that in future slides. So let's look into some examples of these artificial sweeteners. So the first one is aspartame, and we're going to compare them with sucrose in terms of sweetness. Sucrose is a standard, and then aspartame is between 100 and 200 times sweeter than sucrose. So this means that you will require it in very small quantities as compared to sucrose. Some of the commercial products are equal. That is a combination between aspartame and acesulfame potassium. Another company that used to market aspartame was NutraSweet, but now it has switched to stevia. And this aspartame has 4 calories per gram, so the same as sugar, but it's used in very small amounts, and that's why the calorie intake will be much lower. If we use aspartame in food, we have to label it as phenylketonurics, contains phenylalanine, and here we have a question why do we have to do this? So the answer is that phenylalanine is an amino acid, and some some people, some consumers have some genetic condition that will prevent them from metabolizing this amino acid, and it will cause some type of allergy, and that's why this label, preventive label, has to be in the products that contain aspartame. Some examples of the use of aspartame are Diet Coke, and normally aspartame is used in combination with acesulfame potassium. And this is just an example. There's many other applications in food and drinks or beverages, but there has been a switch to use from aspartame to other types of sweeteners such as stevia. The second example is saccharin. Saccharin, if we compare it with table sugar, is 300 times sweeter. Some consumers have described a metallic aftertaste. So the aftertaste that what you feel after you have consume it, and then you have that aftertaste. So the commercial name is Sweet and Low. There has been some controversy with this type of sweetener because of what I mentioned before. So there was a time where it was approved, then it was banned because there were some research or studies in rats that showed that saccharin produced bladder cancer. And even when these maybe results were not conclusive and were not, of course, extrapolated to humans, saccharin was banned for a few decades. Then FDA revised it, and now it's approved again. So this can happen with not only sweeteners but any type of additives. So FDA is always looking for evidence, and if there is any source of doubt about the safety of this type of sweeteners or additives, then the FDA will ban it or retire it from the market. But as for today, it is approved. It is what we call GRAS, which is generally recognized as safe, and it is commercialized. Some examples of use are jams, jellies, and fruit juices. The next one is acesulfame potassium, and it's 130 to 200 times sweeter than sucrose. The commercial name is Sweet One, and some examples of use are Diet Coke, as I mentioned before, in combination with aspartame. Together they are widely used. Other uses are frozen desserts and yogurt, and also some chewing gum and sweets. The next one is sucralose. So 600 times sweeter than sucrose. Has a less artificial aftertaste as described by consumers. Its commercial name is Splenda, and in the ingredients it contains also maltodextrin, which is starch powder. We saw it the previous week, carbohydrate, and this is added as a bulk agent to have more to have enough amount for to carry the aspartame, which is used, the Splenda, the sucralose, which is used in very small quantities. Some examples of use are baking, in sodas, in gums, and processed foods. So another type of sugar substitutes, that's how we're going to call them, are sugar alcohols, and they are also known as polyols. So sugar alcohols occur naturally in fruits and vegetables. They have a chemical structure that is similar to high carbohydrate and alcohol, but it's not does not perfectly fit either of these categories. They do not contain ethanol, which is a compound present in alcoholic beverages, and they are not all of them are sweet as sucrose. They can be combined with also artificial sweeteners which are the ones that we mentioned before, like aspartame, acesulfame, potassium, sucralose, and they are becoming more popular, these sugar alcohols, because of the consumers' demands for like low sugar or less added sugar. So what are the sugar alcohols that are available? So these are 3 examples. The first one is sorbitol, and it's between 50% and 60% as sweet as sugar, so half the sweetness, and it's used in candy. It has to be consumed in moderation because sorbitol, some people are susceptible to consuming high amounts of sorbitol. They can have some digestion problems, and it can cause like the excess, like in very high amounts, it can cause diarrhea. The next example is xylitol, and it's similar in terms of sweetness as sugar, and it's very commonly used in toothpaste and gum. The next one is erythritol, and it's this sugar alcohol is derived from corn, around 50% the sweetness as compared with sucrose. So how do we, what about regulations and labeling? So normally declaring sugar alcohol content is voluntary, not mandatory. And if we declare it in the nutritional facts, it has to be under total sugars, and it has to use the calorie count depending on the type of sugar alcohol that we are using. And some examples of when it becomes mandatory when you use labels like low sugar or sugar free. So if you use this type of claims, you have to declare your sugar alcohols. And there's some research on like what's the impact of sugar on blood sugar. And this is a research from UC San Francisco, and you can look at this link if you want more information about how this affects blood on your sugar and how this at the same time affects diabetes and so. So these are a few tables from an article called Reducing Added Sugars with Polyols, and this is an article that was from the Journal of Food Technology from IFT, which is the Institute of Food Technologies. And well, this is an article that talks about like product development and how companies can reduce the amount of sugar, because this is what consumers want. And these 2 tables, the first table shows the amount of calories per gram. As we remember, carbohydrates contribute to 4 calories per gram. And then we have all these different polyols or sugar alcohols and the different calories per gram according to the US and to the European Union. So there's a variation. So we can see like sucrose is at the bottom of the table, and it's 4 calories, as I mentioned before. And then we have different calories for different sugar alcohols. And these differences may be, as we may see in the European approval, it's a constant of 2.4 calories per gram, and in the US there's like differences depending on the type of polyol that we are using. And the second table shows the relative sweetness to sucrose in like a percentage base. So we can see that sucrose and xylitol both have 100%, and then we can see, like for example, erythritol and sorbitol 60%, and then we have other examples. And this is very important because it will change the product formulation in product development manufacturing. So it's very interesting, but it's a necessity because of what consumers want for their products. So now let's talk about what we will call natural sweeteners, and it's important to consider that even when these sweeteners come from natural sources, there's a process of extraction and purification to process the sweetener from the plant, or in this next slide we're going to see the fruit, to the final powder. So there's many processing steps. So even when it comes from a natural source, there's a manufacturing process. So stevia is between 200 and 400 times sweeter than sucrose. It's derived from leaves of a native plant in South America called Stevia rebaudiana. And the compounds that are responsible for sweeteners are called stevia glycosides. It's used a lot with like erythritol to provide volume and texture, and some commercial names are Truvia, Stevia is the raw. And so stevia is one of the most popular sugar substitutes. It's because of its natural origin, it's appreciated by consumers, and many companies are switching to using stevia as a sweetener alone or in combination with either sucrose or other types of sweeteners. The next one, which we can also call a natural fruit sweetener, is called monk fruit, and it comes from the round fruit Siraita grosvenori, and it's not native to South China. It's 150 to 250 times sweeter than sucrose, and the compounds responsible for these are called mogrosides, and mogrosides are triterpenoids. So depending on the concentration of mogrosides, that will determine the sweetness level of the extract. Some commercial names are lakanto, and monk fruit is an emerging sugar substitute or natural sugar, and there's some research going on other types of what they call rare sugars, and that are extracted from different fruits and vegetables and plants. So at the end of this small presentation, these are the questions that you should be able to answer. So what is a nutritive sweetener and a non-nutritive sweetener? How are artificial sweeteners regulated? Is this the same for other sugar substitutes? What is a sugar alcohol? And do they have the same calories as sucrose? And finally, what are the compounds responsible for sweetness in stevia and monk fruit? So thank you for listening, and see you in the next presentation.